Hello, good day to everyone. For our discussion for this day, we will deal with the barriers to communication. So if we say barriers, these are hindrances that prevent the person to communicate with other people. So what are the different objectives that we need to fulfill for this day? These are the following. First, to be able to identify the communication barriers. Second, to be able to identify the reasons for communication breakdown. And third, to be able to distinguish the communication strategies to avoid communication breakdown. So let's have the different barriers in communication. So for the first barrier, it is about language barrier. It is the differences in language used by the communicators. So here, it's not merely on the differences of language used by the communicator. It is also about the terms, the words, or the different words that the communicators are using that may hinder the communication process. So it's not about the language used. So example for this is the jargon. These are overcomplicated or unfamiliar terms or words. Basically, jargons are words that were used in a specific field. Like for example, in the field of engineering, in the field of medicine, in the field of education or teaching, we have different jargons or words that we use in our own profession only. Example for this is the word blueprint. A blueprint is used in the field of engineering. It's not being used in the field of medicine and education because the word blueprint is always or frequently used in the field of engineering. So if the sender and the receiver are both from the engineering department or engineering field, they know how to use the blueprint. They know the purpose of blueprint. They know when to use the blueprint. They know how to construct or make a blueprint and etc. But if the sender is an engineer and the receiver is a common people or common person, the receiver will have limited information or knowledge about the blueprint because the common person or common individual, he or she doesn't use a blueprint in his or her life. Same as true with the word blueprint. Still, if the sender is from the engineering field and the receiver is from the educational field, like for example, the teacher knows what is blueprint, but the teacher doesn't know how to make blueprint, how to create a blueprint, how to apply blueprint in teaching and etc. That that word or that kind of jargon may hinder the communication process between the sender and receiver, who is the sender, the engineer, and the receiver is the teacher. Right? That is jargon, the overcomplicated or unfamiliar terms or words. Next is technical terms. These are words that are used in relation to technologies. So IT people or ICT students were the ones who use technical terms every now and then. So if the sender and receiver were from the field of ICT or IT, they know how to use or how to use the terms, the technical terms in their occupation or their profession. But if the technical terms were used in the common conversation, like for example, the sender is an IT professional and then the receiver is just a child, the child doesn't know what terms are those and what is the meaning of those terms. So that may also cause language barrier in that kind of situation. Third example is the scientific words, words that are used in the field of science. So field of science are the scientific words or the words used in the medicines and etc. So the scientific words were used only in a specific field, dun sa medicine, field ng medicine, or dun sa field ng science. Okay? And for the code names, words that are used as a substitute for something. So for the code names, everyone can use code names. Everyone can set code names. Everyone can use code names as a substitute for something. So ginagamit ang code names merely to substitute a name to another name para hindi malaman if sino yung pinag-uusapan. Yan yung tinatawag na code names. In the field of research, ginagamitan din ng codes yung mga participants. Example, if your participants are students from this school, pwede kayong mag-code ng S1, S2, S3, or student 1, student 2, student 3, di ba? Or if you want, pwede naman 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, ganun lang siya. So code names para hindi malaman kung sino yung mga respondents nyo or para hindi malaman kung sino yung mga participants doon sa research. Kasi sa mga participants, mas lalo yung mga information nila, data nila, and their answer are very confidential. That's why code names should be used. So kung yung code names na yan, nag-set kayo ng code names, and kayong mga nag-set ng code names, may nakasama kayong isang taon na hindi naman kasama doon sa pag-set ng code names na yan, kung pinag-usapan yung code name na yan between you and the person na hindi kasama sa pag-set ng code name, hindi niya alam kung sino yung pinag-uusapan. That may also cause language barrier in the communication process. For the accents, ginagamit ito palagi or nagagamit ito in different nationalities. So, pwede rin naman in different culture kasi in different culture or group may mga accents din. So, if nagamit ang accents na yan in a wrong way or in a appropriate way, magkukos siya ng language barrier. Okay, for the second barrier, the psychological barrier, this is about the state of mind or about the cognitive aspect of a person. It's about the mind, the brain. So, ano yung mga barriers that may cause communication breakdown? Lack of interest, a lack of attention, distractions, irrelevance of the topic to the listener, and fear. So, if si sender or si receiver is nakakaranas ng ganito during the communication process, it might cause barriers in the communication process. Number 3, physiological barriers. Pag sinabing physiological barrier, it is about the physical state of a person. It's about the physical body or the body parts. So if a person is visually impaired, auditory impaired, have a hearing problem, a physically impaired, or meron siyang speech difficulties, it may also cause communication breakdown or miscommunication between the sender and the receiver. For the visually impaired, if the sender is meron siyang impairment sa vision, like for example na nearsighted or farsighted, and then yung kausap niyang receiver, meron ding impairment with regards sa vision, sa kanya naman is malabo or blurry vision, magkakaroon pa rin dyan ng communication breakdown. In terms of sa pinag-uusapan nila, syempre hindi nila nakikita yung mga hindi nila nakikita ng maayos yung mga non-verbal signals and symbols. Also with auditory impairment, physical impairment, and speech difficulties, all of this can hinder the communication process. Number 4, physical barriers. This pertains to the geographical distance or the location or the proximity, or not able to see the non-verbal cues, gesture, posture, and body language. All of this can make the communication process ineffective and unsuccessful. That's why if the sender and receiver, nasa medyo malayo silang distance, they need to go nearer with each other para magkaintindihan sila ng mas maayos. Okay, 5th is about systematic or systemic barrier. This is about the structure and organization of information. If there is a lack of appropriate information system or communication channel, it may cause communication breakdown kasi magkakaroon ng misinformation, kulang ng information, o kaya walang information at all. Ambiguous or unclear instruction. So, if you have observed yung mga unclear instruction, it leads to wrong result or wrong output, di ba? So if you are the sender, you need to give clear, precise, and specific instruction para yung receiver, marireceive niya ng maayos yung information na kailangan niyang gawin and yung output magiging correct and tama. Okay. Unclear roles and responsibilities. If you don't know your roles and responsibilities as a person or as a child or as a student, nagkakaroon pa rin ng barrier in the communication process. Why or how come? Kasi since hindi nyo alam yung responsibilities niyo, you don't know what to do. Diba? So, in that case, you need to know your responsibilities and roles. Kung ano man yung responsibilities and roles niyo in life, you need to know about them to avoid communication, breakdown communication, barrier, or miscommunication. 6 is attitudinal barriers. This is about the conflicts between the sender and the receiver. What are those conflicts? Poor self-management, lack of motivation, internal or interpersonal conflict. So, kung itong mga to is na-occur sa isa man, kung si sender or kay receiver, magkakaroon pa rin siya ng barriers in communication. So, it is about conflicts. It's about attitudes. Number 7, emotional barrier. This is about the feelings and or emotion of the sender or the receiver during the communication process. So if the receiver or the sender is feeling broken, angry, nakaranas sila ng hate, lonely sila, sad, depressed, or very excited or very anxious, tendency, they don't want to communicate with other people. So ito yung pinaka mahirap sa lahat na klase ng barrier kasi if someone is very emotional, yun talaga, nagkakaroon ng barrier, hindrance, or nagkakaroon ng disturbance sa communication process. So how do we avoid those or at least lessen the problems in communication breakdown? We need to know about this and apply this in life. Okay? These are the strategies in effective communication. Number 1, practice active listening. So if you practice active listening, this is listening attentively and properly that enables you to have a better relationship with other people. Focus on the speaker. Okay, number 2, pay attention to non-verbal cues, not only on the verbal languages or verbal cues. You should also pay attention to non-verbal cues so that the instruction, the information, the message would be clear. And the third, keep your emotions at bay. This is related to the principle of communication about communication is irreversible. What's uttered? The statement is uttered. It cannot be taken back. So think before you speak so that you will not have any regrets later on. So if you are angry, don't talk. If you are very happy, don't decide. If you are jealous, don't say something you don't meant. Remember, always consider your decision and emotion if you are in your neutral feeling to avoid any regret. Okay, number 4, assert yourself. Stand up for your thoughts, feelings, and needs in an open and honest way without disrespecting others. How will you do this? First, you need to acknowledge that all opinion matters. Okay, you just need to acknowledge it. And then second, know yourself. Know your limitation, know your strengths and weaknesses. Number 3 or third way is express properly your emotions. So if this is your emotion, you express it through action and through words properly. And then fourth, accept feedback. Any kind of feedback, negative, positive, criticism, or other kinds of feedback, you accept those because hindi naman sasabihin yun sa'yo towards you if hindi yun yung na-observe nila sa'yo. And then fifth, know your limitations. Learn how to say no. Learn how to say no. Especially if hindi nyo talaga kayang gawin. Okay? To avoid any misunderstanding or miscommunication or yung tinatawag na trust issues. So these are the strategies in effective communication. So thank you for listening. Thank you for attending. Thank you for joining our virtual class. See you again next quarter. So thank you and have a nice day.